Hi, everyone. This is Prab from Subspace. I'm speaking with Ash Dahlke here. And in anticipation of the show that she'll have at Subspace, October 3rd, in a few days on Saturday, we're chatting about technique, and I'm very interested to dive into that. So thanks, Ash, for joining me.
Thanks, Prab. Well, I wanted to dive into some of the drawings that you guys will see on Saturday, and most of those I made while I was at my residency in Subspace. I'm an artist. I was working and living in Tucson for a very long time, and I just recently moved out to Douglas. So still really connected with the community here.
Okay. And so the works that you'll show, these are drawings that come from photographs you've taken, right?
Exactly. So my process that I normally go through is I go to thrift stores and estate sales, and I'll take photos of groupings of objects. And in the past, I've normally done a process where I'll cut things out, paste them onto another sheet of paper, and that'll be the reference that I either draw or paint from. And so I was doing that for a while, and then I was figuring out different ways to continue to challenge what I was doing. I feel like that happens with artists a lot as we figure out other ways to make our lives a little bit more complicated. So I started playing in Photoshop and doing a variety of layering techniques with different photos. And I'll share that with you guys here right now. So let me see. Let me share that. Great. Okay. So up on my screen, so I have this photograph. It's normally much larger, so you can see kind of that general outline. And I normally will drag a photo in and just kind of play around as to where I'll want it on my screen. As an artist, you have the power to kind of exclude things that you might not want to draw. And so some of that process happens as I'm going through these photographs. But once I have this first layer, I'll drag in another photo that I will then kind of layer on top. So I'm going to make this so it fits that size. Let's see. And then I want to ensure that I can see the image that's behind it and in front. So I'll start playing around with different opacities. So I will kind of make this a little bit more transparent, and I'll get this a little bit larger so you can see. I'll make it a little bit more transparent. I'll bring some areas, I don't know what's happening here. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Okay.
All right.
So I'll kind of go through these different layers of opacity to see what exactly is happening within here, what information I want to fall to the background, and what information I would like to bring to the front. And a lot of my work deals with memory, and these objects that I'm looking at have inherently their own memory. So they've all had their previous lives, and now they're either at this estate sale, garage sale, thrift store. And so thinking about memory and transparency and how that can sometimes be this intangible thing, I like to shift in between these different layers. So,
wow. Yeah, that's looking already, it's looking very good.
And so
very good mix.
We had talked about this in the past too, is how this translates then to a drawing. So I give myself this very complicated image, and then, so here's another complicated image that I've used in the past that I used for one of my drawings. I have these two layers of photographs, and then from here, I'll print out the image, and then I build it up into a drawing with graphite. So within this drawing process, some information is left out, some information is still there, but it's about giving a sense of that push and pull, that kind of transparency that I have with the initial image. So here's a really great example of how that translates from that digital reference to a final drawing. Yeah, and that's where that's where all most of the work that you guys will see on the 3rd will come from.
Wow. And how do you choose which kinds of things to include, or how is it changing for you as you're drawing?
Sure.
What is going to be the final, what we're all going to see versus what you're seeing?
So in terms of picking the photographs, that's kind of an arbitrary rule that I give myself. I knew I wanted these to be 4x8. I didn't want them to be very large, which might change in the future, but for right now, that's the rule I have. And then the images all have to come from the same place. And that's just another rule that I gave myself in terms of just giving myself a place to start, because I have so many of these images that trying to match them with things from different times or different places is a little overwhelming. So I give myself that rule just to kind of shift through the images in a little a little more efficiently. And then when it comes to the editing process, I mean, it's always good to have a plan, right? And that's for life, and in art, you normally have some sort of plan before you get going. And a lot of the times, and I'm going to share my screen again just to kind of talk about this point, is some areas will become more important to me in the drawing. So I'll realize maybe in the reference photo that some of this information is blending a little bit more than I would like it to in the final drawing. So going back and forth in between these two, this kind of line in here becomes much more important than it is in the reference photo. And so for me, compositionally, I'm just kind of shifting some of those things as I'm working to shift the focus where I want it to be, and pull out different elements so it has that same feeling of transparency.
That brings to mind in photography, you might, what is it, dodge and burn?
Sure.
As you develop a photo, but
that's exactly right. Yeah, I mean, it's a part of that intuitive process that you can do both in Photoshop, but also traditional kind of photography where you're kind of choosing how you want the values of whatever photograph you're looking at to either come forward or be pushed away. Yeah, so it's starting with that plan and then editing it from there.
And are you continuing with some of these techniques in a newer group of work that we haven't seen yet?
Yeah, soon. I can't say when. I do want to expand using both graphite, but also bringing in some color. So I really kind of stayed away from color for these drawings just because there's a lot of color in the reference photos. And in terms of layering, that's not something I was ready to dive into because it's already complicated with the graphite, and then adding color is another layer. So that's something in the future that I want to do. But I don't think I'm done with this series of work yet. I think there's at least 10 or so more of these in just graphite that I want to continue on.
All right. Well, Ash, thanks so much for diving into that and showing us how it's done. I'm looking forward to the show in a few days.
Great. I'm excited for the show, and thank you for spending the time to talk to me about my process. All right. See you soon.
Hey, bye.